Holy cow, is that ever blown out? Okay, hang on. We gotta do something about the lighting here. Hang on one second. There we go. All right. That's at least better. I'm perfectly comfortable playing the role of God. I just didn't really want to look like one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is Super Wildcard Weekend, the most involved weekend of playoff football of the whole season. 6 games, 6 playoff football games across 3 days. It is a super, super exciting time. And obviously, it's the time when playoff fortunes are made and lost because 12 of your 14 playoff teams start right away. So it is a super exciting time. I've been dealing with some like a throat and kind of congestion thing for like a week. So it's a bad time between doing this stream and filming for the movie awards, which begins tomorrow. So say a prayer for your boy. That's all I'm saying. Say a prayer for your boy. All right. So let's open up this. And let's start up this. The pre-stream rituals, as always. Recording device is correct. Recording level there is good. Oh, by the way, for anybody that happens to be in the stream, can you confirm for me? Because last week, the microphone was a little crackly. So if anybody can happen to confirm for me at some point through the stream, whether or not the microphone sounds crackly. Might just be my voice, but it didn't come up on the podcast version of the show. So I think it had something to do with YouTube's player. Delicious coffee. Sound great? Awesome. Thank you, Paxton. I appreciate that. All right. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to Super Wildcard Weekend. Nope, because I'm not actually recording. Let's hit the recording button. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome, officially this time, to Super Wildcard Weekend, my episode from my weekly NFL football picks show, and boy, we're just off to a rollicking good start, aren't we? Look, this season has been nothing short of a landmark for me personally. When I look at the results that I've had this season, especially against the spread, this has been a remarkable season for me personally. So, week 18, hit double digits straight up, 11-5. We always like to see that. I end the regular season 169 and 103 straight up. We definitely like that. Just like, I think 169 is the highest single total for a season straight up that I've ever had. Now, of course, we play 17 games. Every team plays 17 games now instead of 16. So there's 272 games in a season instead of 256. So that's kind of skewed, obviously. But in terms of just that bulk straight up number, that's the highest I've ever had. Against the spread, I finished the season in week 18 with a stunning 13-3 against the spread record in week 18, which means I finished the regular season at 152, 114, and 6, which is easily my best against the spread record ever. And by percentage, I believe is my best against the spread record ever. So against the spread, this was a landmark season. Went 9-7 on the totals last week, finished 10 games under 500 on the totals. Obviously not the best that I've ever done, but Definitely not the worst I've ever done on the totals either. So we'll Barry Horowitz ourselves there, and we'll take that as a win. For this season, for those curious minds, the rule of 4 goes 14-4. Obviously, the rule of 4, as we've talked about plenty of times, the rule that says at least 4 betting underdogs will win their games straight up in any given week, no matter how many games happen to be in that week. So 13 game week, 16 game week, it doesn't matter. The rule of 4 says at least 4 betting underdogs will win their games outright. That went 14-4 this season. Had its first back-to-back losing weeks since like before the pandemic. It was weeks which ones was it? It was weeks 11 and 12. So for those 2 weeks, only 3 won instead of 4. So the rule was not fulfilled. But 14-4 on the season feels pretty good for the rule of 4, and that's my baby. That's what I came up with. That was my like one of the first things that I really picked out, and it's like, oh, it's like 4 and it's like clockwork every single week. So it's my baby. I have some possession over it, but it feels pretty good that it had another very, very strong season. Now, to take a peek at the Bridgewater's finest straight up pick 'em pool for this season. The regular season obviously is done, but the game continues throughout the postseason. I sit in 16th place out of 52, 1,464 confidence points. It's exactly at 66.5%. So we like that. That's a pretty good place to be sitting in at the end of the regular season. And look, we had a lot more people in the pool this year, and we had killers in the pool this year. Really, really, really strong pick'em players, because the top of these rankings are really, really tight and really, really strong. I brought in 101 of 136 confidence points in week 18 to close the regular season, 74.3%. I like it. But shout out to our Week 18 winner, a name we've called a couple times this season, Mr. Moby Polito. Moby Polito goes 14-2 in Week 18, which is massive. 123 of 136 confidence points. It's just under 90.5% for Week 18. So huge shout out to Moby Polito. That's a big performance. And our regular season winner is Marvin Pickset. Marvin Pickset holds on 172 and 100 on the regular season, 1,544 confidence points. It's just over that 70%, which we've always talked about as the championship pace in the pick'em pool, 70% of confidence points. He was at 70.1. So he's right there on that pace. Shout out to Moby Polito for winning week 18 and for Marvin Pickset for being our regular season winner. Now, interestingly enough, as we move into the postseason, Marvin Pickset has an 11-point lead on second place. There are 146 confidence points left to play for in this playoff. What that means is the top 25 in that pool. If you're in that pool and you're in the top 25, you are still mathematically alive. If you are in the top 10, you are within 51 points. If you are in the top 5, you are within 29 points. That's how close this top 5 and top 10 are. And the fact that the top 25 are technically still mathematically alive, it's about as competitive as this pool has ever been. Super exciting for me as the person running it. I can't wait to see how everything plays out. Let's see. Tyler in the chat, you're the GOAT. I appreciate that. Half Moon, Moby, the man from Mexico City. Oh, very nice. There you go. Good super morning, Justin. 9 a.m. What the hell? Hey, I had to get it done sometimes. The movie awards are on the horizon. I had to get this done, and this was the time I was going to be able to do it. So there we go. I think I'm top 22. There you go. Look, like I say, if you're in that top 25, mathematically, you are still alive. So look, anything can happen. These guys may forget that this pool goes through the playoffs. We have people that forget that every single year. That's why I've said it the last like 3 straight weeks. The pool is still going all through the playoffs. A lot of people will forget that that's the case because not all pools do go through the playoffs. So there's plenty of room for moving up in these last couple of weeks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Let's pop into our 6 Super Wildcard Weekend games for the 2023 NFL season, 2024 playoffs, however you want to play it. So, our playoff matchups are as follows. On the AFC side, we have a 2v7 matchup of the Buffalo Bills playing host to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have a 3v6 matchup of the Kansas City Chiefs playing host to the Miami Dolphins. And a 4v5 matchup of the Houston Texans playing host to the Cleveland Browns. Over on the other side of the docket, on the NFC, a 2v7 matchup of the Dallas Cowboys playing host to my Green Bay Packers. We have a 3v6 matchup of the Detroit Lions playing host to the Los Angeles Rams. And a 4v5 matchup of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing host to the Philadelphia Eagles. Crazy matchups, super tight matchups as well. Vegas thinks a couple of them are a little lopsided, but we're going to talk about it. Let's kick things off with those 2 Saturday games, both in the AFC. We will start in Houston, where the Texans are playing host to the Cleveland Browns. Half Moon's 14 in the pool. That's very good. Killed it last week in the ATS pool, number 2 for the season. Yeah. NFL script, Rams at Detroit. Thank the Dallas, that Dallas BS call had a reason. Hey, for everybody that talks about the script writers, that's a pretty damn good outcome right there. You couldn't have asked for much more than that. So, Cleveland at Houston. Browns are coming into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games, having played on the road last week. Now, of course, they rested a bunch of starters, so how much that really comes into play in this particular game might be a little dubious, but it's worth pointing out the players that did play in that game are now playing 2 straight road games, and all of them have still had to do the travel. So, it is a thing. In terms of one thing that I really looked at for the games this week is the turnover ratios, because obviously huge plays like that, game defining plays, are only magnified now that we're in the postseason and you win and move on, you lose, you go home. All of those moments are really heavily magnified. So in terms of the turnover ratio, we have a polar opposite conversation here. The Houston Texans, one of the top teams in the NFL with a plus 10 turnover ratio on the season. Obviously, CJ Stroud was super, super careful with the football, but still, he was careful, but he was aggressive. Because, what a rookie season for CJ Stroud. You can't say enough about this kid. It is worth pointing out, and I put it right in the description of this live stream, no rookie quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl. And only 2 in their first season as a starter have won the Super Bowl. Those being Kurt Warner and Tom Brady. So obviously CJ Stroud is chasing immortality here. And to a lesser extent, a guy like Jordan Love in his first year as a starter. But in any case, he has a very uphill battle, CJ Stroud does, as a rookie quarterback, trying to win a Super Bowl, something no one has ever done before. But again, with the turnover ratio, Houston plus 10, very good this season. Cleveland minus 9, one of the lowest ranks across the entire league, minus 9 in the turnover ratio. That is the kind of thing that in a playoff game looms very, very large. You lose a turnover battle in a playoff game, it's magnified. It means that much more. Now, the Browns on the offensive side of the ball over their last 4 games heading into the playoffs, kind of I excluded last week from this because, again, when you're resting starters, it's not really overly fair. Like when you're intentionally resting starters, not really overly fair to put that into the equation. So, skipping that, the Browns have been like the number 2 team in the AFC in terms of the playoff teams across the board on the offensive side. Offensive efficiency, yards per game, points per game. Cleveland ranks number 2 in the AFC in all 3 of those categories, second only to Baltimore among the AFC playoff teams. So the Cleveland offense has been cooking lately, playing really, really good football. I go back to this because I've kind of made fun of it a little bit. Everybody talks about the Cleveland Browns and this championship caliber defense they have. Over the last 4 games, we haven't seen that. They've been allowing about 22 points a game, which is not crazy, but it is the second highest among AFC playoff teams over this period in time. And their defensive efficiency is the worst among AFC playoff teams. Matter of fact, it is the worst among all playoff teams. On the defensive efficiency side of the ball, this defense is not playing like that championship caliber defense that everybody has been talking about the Cleveland Browns having. So I'm not seeing that in the numbers. Meanwhile, you take a look over on Houston's side, they've kind of struggled offensively over the last little bit. They're still scoring points, but they're not really moving the ball a ton. As a matter of fact, they're 302 yards per game over their last 4 games heading into the playoffs, ranks dead last among all playoff teams. I was going to say AFC, but it's dead last among all playoff teams. So they're not moving the ball as effectively as they have earlier in the season, but part of that too was when Stroud was injured. So like Stroud's only been back for what, I think 2 games? Since those 2 games, they've been cooking. So the fact that Stroud is back obviously completely changes the whole dynamic of that offense. And on the defensive side, they've been pretty good. Less than 20 points a game allowed, less than 300 yards a game allowed. Their defense has been playing solid down the stretch, which is what they needed in order to catch up to Jacksonville. From an injury perspective, we do have one to talk about, one real significant one to talk about on both sides. For Cleveland, on the offensive side, Amari Cooper dealing with that foot injury. He did not practice yesterday. We'll certainly be watching the practice reports here to see what his status is leading up, but that was back-to-back days that Amari Cooper did not practice. That does put his availability in question this week. So if he's not able to play, that's a huge hit to the Browns on the offensive side of the ball, which has been their strength, which we just talked about. And for Houston, on the defensive side, on their D-line, defensive end Will Anderson Jr., probably my presumptive pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. If I had to make one, it's probably going to be Will Anderson. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. That's 2 straight days of practice that Will Anderson was not involved in. So same deal. We got to watch the practice reports, see what that might mean. And if he's not practicing and his availability is in question, that definitely hurts the Texans' chances. I think ultimately where I landed on this football game was I have faith in general in one of these 2 teams, and I have a lot of skepticism towards the other one. And I think in what we talked about, you can probably guess which way this goes. I'm pretty skeptical of the Cleveland Browns. I don't necessarily see them as maybe the kind of dark horse contender in the AFC that a lot of other people do. The Joe Flacco story has been incredible. It's been great. It's been awesome to see him turn back the clock. I think there are enough things here that Cleveland will not overcome that I have a lot of faith in CJ Stroud to get this job done, especially on home field. And the Browns were not great away from home this year. They weren't what they were a totally different team in their own barn. They don't get that opportunity this week. I like the Houston Texans. We're going to go ahead and grab Houston here at home to get the win over the Cleveland Browns. And this is actually a marginal upset based on Vegas. Vegas has the Texans as 2.5-point dogs at home in a playoff game. I'm more than happy to take that plus 2.5. I think the Texans are the better team. I think they wind up with the win. So give me the Texans straight up. Give me the plus 2.5. Total in the game set at 44.5 points. I feel like this becomes a little bit of a shootout maybe in the second half. I think this goes over this number. Give me over the 44.5 point total. Give me 27-21 in favor of the Houston Texans. Texans win. Texans cover. Give me the over on the points. The other Saturday game is the Miami Dolphins traveling to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, like I mentioned, in terms of the turnover conversation, and I might be leading everything off with that, but the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're looking for one of the biggest reasons that the Chiefs struggled, relatively speaking, this year, it's turnovers. The Chiefs didn't generate a ton in terms of turnovers on the defensive side. They were minus 11 this season. Again, one of the absolute worst marks across the entire NFL. Minus 11 in the turnover ratio. Yes, they're going to be playing at home where their ratio was better this year. But minus 11 on the season, that's tough. Like that it's really tough to overcome when you're like losing the turnover ratio by nearly 1 per game, right? You played 17 games, you were minus 11 in the turnover ratio. Miami was kind of middle of the road. I think they were about even. They might have been plus or minus a couple either way. Might have been like plus 2 or 3, something like that. So they got the job done in this concern. Kansas City did not. And again, I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons that the Chiefs struggled this year. Obviously, the very public ones were the fact that the receivers couldn't hold on to the ball. But that put them in situations where they had to be more aggressive, and it turned into turnovers. In terms of the injury conversation here, obviously Miami's pretty beat up, but I do believe by the time this game rolls around, a lot of their injuries they will have back. One that I don't think they're going to have back is safety Javon Holland, Canadian. Javon Holland is dealing with injuries to both of his knees. If it was one knee, like okay, but he's got injuries to both of his knees. That is really, really tough for a professional athlete. My heart goes out to him. I'm just gonna say that right off the top. So injuries to both knees. He didn't practice Wednesday. He has not practiced yet this week. I would say of all of the Dolphins, like kind of pending injuries, I would say he's the least likely to play. And that's definitely a big deal. Javon Holland has been huge for them in their secondary this year. He has had an excellent season on the defensive side. That is a big loss for the Miami Dolphins, especially against a team in Kansas City that we know can run up the score offensively. Now, in saying that, they haven't exactly been doing that lately. The Kansas City Chiefs are actually the worst playoff team across all the teams that made the playoffs, the worst in terms of offensive efficiency and points per game over the last 4. Their offensive efficiency dead last among all 14 playoff teams, and they're only scoring 20.8 points per game over their last 4 games. So kind of limping to the finish line here, but I think their defense has kind of masked that because nobody was really talking about that specifically. I feel like the defense kind of made up for it a little bit. Their efficiency was kind of hit and miss, but only allowing like 250 yards per game over their last 4 and only allowing 18.5 points. So that is the best mark among AFC, actually the best mark among any playoff team in terms of yards per game allowed, and right up there with the top teams in terms of fewest points allowed. I will say, like defensively, it was defense over the last 4 weeks that got teams into the playoffs, because you look at the marks for all of these playoff teams, only like 2 of them are giving up more than 24. Like it's crazy. Like the defenses played such a key role for all of these teams down the stretch. We look at Miami offensively across the board. They've kind of struggled relative to the rest of the playoff teams. Efficiency, second worst in the AFC. Yards per game, second worst in the AFC. And points per game, second worst in the AFC among the playoff teams. So, relatively speaking, struggled offensively. They've struggled defensively as well, giving up the most points over their last 4 of any AFC playoff team and the second most yardage. So, and again, like they limped to the finish line. They were injured across the board. Not having a guy like Javon Holland, I think, is going to play a big role in this game. And I'm gonna lean with the Chiefs here. I don't necessarily know that the Chiefs are the better football team top to bottom. What I do know is, at least on paper, they've got the better quarterback. I would say that Miami probably has the higher end weapons, but how many of them are healthy? Like Devon Achane is on the injury report. Tyreek Hill has been. Is Jalen Waddle going to be available? We don't really know. I think I got to lean with the Chiefs on this one. This is going against that turnover statistic that I think is very, very important. So I will be willing to kind of eat crow on this one, like Tyler is currently making me do in the chat by just screaming the word blasphemy. I'm willing to eat crow on this one if I'm wrong, but I think I'm going to lean on the Chiefs on this one. Let's take Kansas City at home to get the win over the Dolphins. On the line, Chiefs are favored by 4.5 points. So look, you're going to favor them by less than a touchdown. It's not a great hedge. I think I'm going to have to lay those points. Let's lay the -4.5, even though we're kind of doing this while we do it. Total in the game set at 44.5 points. I really do think it's the Chiefs on the defensive side that wind up deciding this football game. So give me the under in this one. I think it might get into the 40s, but very, very low. So I don't think it hits this 44.5 point total. Let's go under that number and go like 24-17 in favor of the Chiefs. So Chiefs win, Chiefs cover, and give me the under on the points. Let me just put you on mute here for 2 seconds, folks. I will be right back. Sorry about that. I thought I heard somebody come in the house. I wasn't expecting anybody, so I was like, what's going on? Jehovah's Witnesses. There are Jehovah's Witnesses in Canada. Learn all about that in my new podcast featuring myself and Chris Carter, the Hatbox Kid's wife, just basically called "What is Canada?" she doesn't know what Canada is, so I'm going to take the time on a new podcast to educate her all about Canada. That's a joke, but who knows? It could happen someday. All right, let's move on to the games on Sunday. We had 3 games on Sunday before we get into the Monday night game, which is the Eagles and the Bucks. But we kick things off on a Sunday triple header with the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. This obviously the AFC 2 versus 7 matchup. The Steelers come into this game with something of a long week because they did play on Saturday in week 18. So they do have that extra day of prep. How much that actually comes into play will be kind of interesting to see, but they do have that extra game or extra day. But they are coming into this game on their third consecutive road game, which obviously we know that's a big deal. Like teams that were on the tail end of back-to-back road games this year went like 26-45 this year or something. Like it was not a boon to their chances to play multiple consecutive road games this year. So the fact that this is going to be Pittsburgh's third in a row and they're the 7 seed, so they're not going to get another home game, it makes it a very uphill climb for them. However, the Steelers were one of the top teams in the NFL this year in terms of the turnover ratio. They were at plus 11 this season. So very, very, very strong results there. Buffalo, another team that was kind of middle of the road, but like huge season for Pittsburgh on the defensive side. But speaking of the defensive side for the Steelers, they're going to have to go without TJ Watt, arguably their best defensive player, arguably one of the best defensive players in football. TJ Watt not going to be out there, obviously very public knee injury. He is out this week, already reported as out. I've heard rumors that they might try to disguise JJ in TJ's jersey just to have a Watt out there. I think that was a joke from the Pat McAfee show, but I personally think that would be hilarious. I think they should absolutely I think he should come on the field in pregame. That let's make the NFL fun. I just think that would be hysterical. I mean, I think everybody's obviously looking at this game as a David and Goliath matchup with the Bills and the Steelers, and I totally understand that. I think this matchup is actually a little bit closer. Certainly, if the TJ Watt injury wasn't a thing, I think this matchup's a lot closer than a lot of other people think, because it's not like I don't personally see Buffalo as a team that totally lit things on fire down the stretch. I think they were good. I think they were probably better than good, but I don't think they were like untouchable down the stretch. And the Steelers are playing, I think, some of their best football of the season, especially on the defensive side. Their efficiency is really, really high. They've been playing really solid football, defensively speaking. I actually think this is a little bit of a closer matchup than I think a lot of other people do. In addition to the TJ Watt injury, we're also monitoring Najee Harris for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is dealing with a knee injury, did not practice on Wednesday. So we don't know about the Bills. The Bills only had a walkthrough. So we don't really know about them on the injury side, but we do obviously know TJ Watt. We do know that Najee Harris's availability is questionable coming into this game. Half Moon puts in the chat there, a lot of wind and snow forecasted in Buffalo. So the run game, I think, is going to be exceptionally important in that game. And I think that does kind of play a little more into the hands of the Buffalo Bills, because you have a quarterback there in Josh Allen that obviously is not afraid to just tuck the ball and run. And I don't think you'll get that same kind of output from the Steelers. And especially not if, you're down your top running back. And Najee's been playing really good football down the stretch. The last 4 weeks of the season, Najee's had his best games of the year here late in the season. So I think that all plays into the hands of the Buffalo Bills. Therefore, we're going to take the Buffalo Bills to win this football game in Buffalo. That's our third straight home team. I like Buffalo to get the win, but they are very heavily favored against the spread. Buffalo's currently favored a -10, so double digits in a playoff game. And that I just don't really believe in, to be perfectly honest. I don't see in what's going to be a weather impacted game, probably low scoring, two pretty decent defenses, even with the TJ Watt injury. I just think 10 points here is too many. I think this is a closer football game than that. So give me the +10 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Total in the game set at 36.5. I think I got to take the under there, especially with the impending weather. I when I looked at this game at first, I really felt like a 20-16. Like 20-16 for whatever reason just screams at me in my head. So let's do that. Let's go 20-16. 20-16 for the Bills. Just barely hits the under. Give me the +10 on the Steelers. I think this is a competitive football game that if Pittsburgh came up and stole this game, would I be shocked? Probably not. Reminds me of that Indy at Buffalo Snow game. It was like a 7-13 overtime game in 2017. Fair enough. That's actually a pretty good, I think that's a pretty good simile. Let's go over to the NFC side of things now. The 2v7 matchup, the Dallas Cowboys playing host to my Green Bay Packers. As you can see, Green Bay Packers. We once again have Tiki in the back, but I don't have him turned on. There's a reason I don't have him turned on. It would feel disingenuous to have him turned on because I'm not taking the Packers. I'm just going to front street that one. I'm not taking the Packers to win this game. In doing my prep for this week, what I found myself, and genuinely, I don't do this. So when I do it, I realize it and I'm not afraid to call it out. I was trying to find reasons to pick Green Bay. And I don't do that. Like as like Half Moon and I make jokes, right? About like, oh, a homer, your homer pick incoming. Like I try very much. If I genuinely believe that it's going to happen, that's what I go with. I just don't this week. There's too many things that the Dallas Cowboys do too well. Now, what I will say, there are reasons to want to feel, confident and excited if you're a Packers fan coming into this game. One of them is you're probably not going to have to deal with Stephon Gilmore. He's not practicing, dealing with a shoulder injury. His status for this game is very much in question. And that's a big loss for them in their secondary. Green Bay, meanwhile, is about as healthy as they've been or getting as healthy as they've been all season. You might have Christian Watson back this week, and we know what the Packers do exceptionally well. Jordan Love has command of that offense. We see it. We saw it down the stretch in those final 3 games. He played out of his mind. Really, really incredible football. And we know what they do very well on third down, which is those big boys up front. They bring pressure. They get sacks on third down. We saw it over and over and over again in the Chicago game. Chicago and Dallas are not alike. These two teams, we are not the same. The Dallas Cowboys are a top 5 team in so many categories across the board. And they're there for good reason. They deserve to be in those spots. Dak Prescott, the only quarterback this season that threw more touchdown passes than Jordan Love, was Dak Prescott. Dak had an incredible season. They have incredible weapons on offense. Their defense, I think, is a little underrated, even though they've been kind of middle of the pack over the last little while. And honestly, the offense over the last 4 games, not a lot to talk about with Dallas. Not moving the ball super well, not scoring a ton of points. But that's only over their last 4 games. And Half Moon kind of just alluded to it in the chat. Carolina scored 30 points on Green Bay. Ew. As much maligned as the Joe Barry defense has been this season, and for good reason, the defense over the last couple of weeks has been playing fine. As a matter of fact, they're only giving up like 312 yards a game. There's nothing wrong with that at all. A lot of that's buoyed from the last 2 weeks or whatever. But when it really comes right down to it, As a Packers fan, I don't need them to win this game. Like, I want them to win the game. I badly want them to win the game, but I don't need them to. They're already playing with house money. Nobody thought this team was going to the playoffs. Nobody. Everybody thought they were a lock for like the worst record in the NFC North. Nobody had any expectations for this team this year at all. Period. And here they sit in the playoffs. 3 weeks ago, I didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs. I hoped they would, but I didn't think it was going to happen. How incredible is it for this team that they're in this spot when they absolutely shouldn't be? And that's a credit to Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, and that entire franchise. They had faith that they were doing the right thing. They did the right thing. They got crazy pants out of town and look like they've stumbled into their third straight franchise quarterback. So it's all good. It is all gravy for the Packers and for this fan base. And if you're part of the fan base and you don't feel that way, that's how you should feel. I will objectively, that is how you should feel right now. This team has overachieved in a myriad of great ways. And if they beat Dallas this week, I will be thrilled. You might not be able to peel my jersey off my back if they beat Dallas this week. I'm going to pick the Cowboys. The turnover ratio, Dallas, one of the best teams in the league, plus 10. Their offense has been like top 5 all season long. Their defense, a little bit underrated, I think. Yeah, the Stephon Gilmore injury might loom large. I still think the Cowboys win this game. Now, in saying that, 7.5 points is too many. More than a touchdown, even though Dallas is like crazy, crazy good at Jerry World. I think they've won 16 games in a row at home or something stupid like that. Like they're crazy good, almost basically untouchable. 7.5 points here is too many. This is going to be an exciting, competitive football game. So give me the plus 7.5 on Green Bay. Total in this game is 50.5. I think this goes over. I think both of these offenses show up and show out. Super exciting football game that's probably decided by the final scoring play of the game. I think that is a field goal for the Dallas Cowboys, and I think they win this game 30-27. So 30-27 Dallas. Take the Cowboys to win. Take the over, but give me the plus 7.5 on Green Bay. Sorry, Tiki. Half Moon put in the chat, the Lions helped Green Bay by beating Minnesota. Absolutely. And speaking of the Detroit Lions, let's talk about them. The Detroit Lions at home playing host to the Los Angeles Rams. The storyline here obviously writes itself. Matt Stafford in his return to Detroit. Jared Goff playing his old team in the LA Rams. You couldn't write a better story for this game heading in. You really couldn't. So, NFC 3 versus 6 matchup here. The Rams, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing their third consecutive road game. So, obviously, this is something that you got to pay close attention to because 3 straight road games, it's definitely a thing and has been a thing all season long. Both of these teams kind of middle of the road in terms of the turnover ratio, so not a lot to talk about there. On the injury side, we do have one significant one, and it's for the Detroit Lions. It is breakout rookie tight end Sam Laporta dealing with a knee injury. He's doubtful in this game, though I don't think he's been outright scratched for the game yet. I don't think that official word has come down, but I think when you talk to Dan Campbell and you listen to Dan Campbell talk about it, he's like, chances are probably not. Now, luckily for this Lions team, they've got ample other weapons. Probably the best 1-2 running back punch in the NFL, right? And that hurts me to say because I don't like David Montgomery. I'm not a David Montgomery fan. I'm all in on Jahmyr Gibbs. That's the guy. I just don't like David Montgomery, but he's had a great season, and I would be an idiot to deny that. A lot of weapons, and a lot of weapons on the Rams side too. Obviously, Puka Nacua, what a story for him. Kyron Williams, what a story for him. And then even like on the defensive side, they got pieces in there that I think kind of flew under the radar this year. This is going to be a really fun football game. This aside from the Packers game, this is probably the game this weekend that I'm looking forward to the most. So what I think this winds up coming down to, because everything else is so marginal and so close, it's how have these teams played coming into this game? Who's got the momentum coming in? And I think very firmly the momentum here sits with the Detroit Lions. They have the top rank in the AFC, or in the NFC, sorry, in terms of offensive efficiency and points per game. They're scoring over 30 points a game over their last four. Efficiency super, super high. And on the defensive side, they've been giving up a lot of yards, but they've been the dictionary definition of bend but don't break. They've been giving up the most yards of any playoff team on defense over the last 4 games, but they're only giving up like 20 points a game. So they're bending, but they're not giving up those big splash scoring plays. And that's really what hurts them. Or what really can hurt you, obviously. And against what can be a high-powered offense in the Rams, and they've been moving the ball and scoring a lot of points lately, so that offense is still definitely cooking. But the defensive side, the defense for the Rams has been a problem over the last 4 games. Their efficiency is low. They've been giving up a lot of yards. They've been giving up a lot of points. 26 points a game over their last 4. It's been a lot of shootouts. If this becomes a shootout, I think the Detroit Lions defense is what makes the difference. Give me the Lions to win this game. The Rams are a really popular upset pick, but give me the Lions here. I think they're the better football team. I think it's a better story, a little bit. So if you go with the script writer angle, I think it's a little bit of a better story for MCDC and Jared Goff and the boys in Detroit to get this win. I like them to do it. Let's take Detroit to beat the Rams. On the line, Detroit laying -3. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -3 points on Detroit. Total in the game, 51.5. I feel really good about this going over. 2 very talented offenses. Again, a defense in LA that's struggling a little bit. I don't think Detroit's going to have any trouble getting to 30 points in this game. So give me the over. Over 51.5 in LA and Detroit. Let's go 34-21 in favor of the Lions. Lions win, Lions cover, and give me the over on the points. Now we'll do a little ad break, and we'll come back for the last one. Hey, we got Martin in the chat now, too. Hey, Martin, thank you so much for stopping in, my friend. All right. The final game of Super Wildcard Weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jalen Hurts versus Baker Mayfield. Just like everybody called, right? All right. This obviously the 4 versus 5 matchup in the NFC. The Eagles come into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games. So that's certainly a toughie. And they also come in among the league's worst teams in terms of the turnover ratio. This has been a big problem for them all season long. -10 for the Eagles in terms of the turnover ratio, among the worst marks in the league. I guess that would be the second worst mark among playoff teams, second only to Kansas City. So imagine if it's a Kansas City-Philadelphia Super Bowl again, and it completely goes against the whole turnover ratio discourse. It's a possibility. It could certainly happen. So, again, turnover ratio, we don't love it. Tampa Bay, for their mark, were +8 this year. So they weren't they were like just fell short of being among like the top teams, but they were still +8. That defense has been really good all season long and ended the season on an absolute heater. The Tampa Bay Bucks, among NFC playoff teams, #1 on defense across the board. Efficiency, yards per game, points per game. Across the board, Tampa Bay, the top team in the NFC. So they're winning on the defensive side. No doubt about that. Offensively, it's been a bit of a struggle. They're not scoring a ton of points. Their efficiency is not great. You look at the Eagles are kind of in the same boat. Their efficiency is not great. They're not moving the ball well at all. They're not scoring a ton of points, and the defense has kind of caved in. Defensive efficiency in the absolute toilet. Points per game allowed in the absolute toilet. As a matter of fact, allowing the most points of any playoff team over their last 4 games, allowing almost 27 points a game. It's all just kind of falling apart for the Eagles. In addition to, Jalen Hurts is banged up. He hurt his throwing hand. That's a problem. A.J. Brown dealing with a knee injury. That's a problem. They just lost, I think, Sidney Brown, another Canadian. They just lost Sidney Brown at safety for the season. We don't know if Reed Blankenship is going to play for the Eagles. Like, they're just really banged up. They limped into the playoffs. I think they're a sitting duck. I really do. I'm going to bite on this. I think the Tampa Bay Bucks upset the Philadelphia Eagles. I really do. I think Tampa Bay gets that home playoff game. Nobody kind of thinks anything of the NFC South. So, like, they've really got the chip on the shoulder, right? They're the ones that are really like, we have something to prove out here. And I think they're going to do it. I think at home, I think that defense flies. I think they shine. And I think Tampa Bay wins this game. Give me the Bucks to upset the Philadelphia Eagles. On the line, the Bucks are taking +3 points here as a home dog. I'm more than happy to take that +3. Total in this game set at 43.5. This game is going to be won with the defense of the Tampa Bay Bucks. Give me an under in this game. Let's go like 20-14. 20-14 in favor of the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bucks win. Bucks cover the +3 and give me a pretty strong under on the points. There you go, folks. It's a home team sweep on Super Wildcard Weekend. I've got Houston beating Cleveland, Kansas City beating Miami, Buffalo beating Pittsburgh, Dallas beating Green Bay, Detroit beating the Rams, and Tampa Bay beating Philadelphia. Final scores: 27-21, 24-17, 20-16, 30-27, 34-21, and 23-17. That's how I see Super Wildcard Weekend going. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments below or in the live chat if you're here with me in the stream. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Super Wildcard Weekend is upon us. Filming for the 10th Lineal Justin and Tyler Movie Awards is also upon us. That begins tomorrow in earnest, so look out for that beginning next week. And enjoy the games. We'll see you again for the divisional round. All right. I'm sure you could hear my voice starting to go there towards the end because it's definitely starting to. So yeah, that's how I think the Super Wildcard Weekend is going to go. A couple of upsets. I think the week is like bookended with a couple of upsets. Obviously, Houston as a home dog, and then Tampa as a home dog. And I kind of had to fight myself to not take Green Bay. I did. I absolutely did. But again, I acknowledged it. I'm like, I'm looking for a reason to do this. Do I even believe this is going to happen? Or am I just looking for a reason because it's what I want? And ultimately, that's what I landed on. I thought that I was just doing it because it was what I wanted to happen rather than what I actually thought was going to happen. So I didn't do it. Give me some credit for that. I demand my credit, damn it. Let's see. We didn't pick a comment of the week. I'm going to take Tyler screaming blasphemy at me. We'll pin that to the top. Blasphemy. Just blasphemy in general. Let's see. What did I miss here in the chat? Uh, bu- 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 My heart loves Ohio State CJ Stroud, but my wallet has to go to January Joe. Fair enough. Hill's return to Arrowhead should be fun. Totally. Kansas City can't catch and Miami's banged up. Both teams can't win versus winning teams. Flip a coin. Paxton, I have a future on Buffalo, so it might be a no play for me. Fair enough. Buffalo is my AFC team to win the division, conference, and Super Bowl. My division ticket cashed last week. We love that moon. Awesome. NFL scriptwriter headline: Rams didn't want me. I proved I was better. The Jared Goff story. I like that. If the Lions don't win, I'll be pretty sad. That came from Martin. Lost by the ghost of Matthew Stafford. Baker Mayfield is the Boy Scout version of Johnny Manziel. That's a great place to end. All right. Thank you so much for watching, folks. We will see you again next week for the divisional round. Enjoy the games on Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll see you next time.